And welcome to another edition of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. How is everybody doing? It's Wednesday night, and we got another great show for you. I have another special guest that's going to be joining the show in just a bit. It's WALB Sports Director Aaron Meaux, and we're going to talk a little high school football as Columbus schools, Albany schools, they're in the same reclassification. It's awesome. No, it's a great interview, and I'm looking forward to having him on the show. A lot to get into on this Wednesday, including SEC Media Days, as we have got 2 days already in the books, day 3 wrapping up later today, and then tomorrow we've got Lane Kiffin taking the podium for the LSU Tigers. I'm going to talk about some of these teams and preview some of the teams in the SEC. And just a little bit, the LeBron watch is still going on. He is holding the league hostage. Rich Paul, Clutch Sports. I don't understand what is going on. By the time this show airs, more than likely he's not even going to be signed to a team. So we're going on more than 3 weeks now. So just curious to see what team is he going to go to. And also, I'm going to preview the AFC West. I did the NFC West on Monday. I'm going to preview the AFC West. And then I have my Alabama high school football report. I'm going to rank the top 10 teams in the state of Alabama. I did the top 10 teams in the state of Georgia on Monday. I'm going to do the top 10 teams in the state of Alabama. Don't forget, you can catch new episodes every Monday and Wednesday, 5 o'clock Eastern on my Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can also listen to a replay of the show on WQVZ Mission Radio 1700 AM in Casita, Alabama at 8 o'clock Eastern on Sunday nights. And it's just a great show, and I cannot wait for high school football because I'm really going to take a deep dive into high school football as we are officially a month away from the start of week 1 of high school football. We do have a week 0 because the private schools are actually going August 14th, but August 21st, we have got high school football games in Muskogee County. We've got Central playing Thompson. It's going to be a jam-packed week. And some of the things I was doing last year, including the high school football scoreboard show, I'd love to still do that this year and possibly call some games on Thursday nights. But I'm really looking forward to calling games on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And let's go ahead without further ado. We are going to go ahead and talk about SEC Media Day because, we've got SEC Media Day going on right now in Tampa, Florida. Day 1 featured Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. There were some pretty cool sound bites from several of the coaches, including Josh Heupel, saying to make sure to get plenty of golf balls and mustard for when LSU comes to Rocky Top or Knoxville, paraphrasing him, of course. Brent Venables said that with the SEC going to a 9-conference schedule, that it's going to be a bloodbath. And I absolutely agree that you're going to end up seeing teams in the SEC with 3-4 losses that could possibly get into the college football playoff. We also had Missouri, their situation with their injured running back, Will Stein, taking the podium, first-year head coach at Kentucky. So you got Eli Drinkowitz. That was day 1. Day 2, which was yesterday, Georgia and Auburn were in the morning. Kirby Smart, Alex Golish. And then later in the afternoon, we had Shane Beamer and Clark Lee for Vanderbilt. The big question for Shane Beamer in South Carolina, they went 4-8 last year, but they get Lenore Sellers back. Vanderbilt, what are they going to do without Diego Pavia? These are some of the questions that definitely are on my mind. And let's talk about day 3 going on today. We got Alabama and Kalen DeBoer entering his 4th year as the coach of Alabama, or 3rd year as the coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I know that the big question that I'm sure people of the media are going to ask who's going to be the starting quarterback? Is it going to be Keelan Russell or is it going to be Austin Mack? I don't know if he knows the answer right now. But we also have new coach of the Florida Gators, John Summerall, which John Summerall coached at Tulane. And with the SEC Media Days being in Florida, you're going to see a lot of Florida media there. So it's really accommodating to Florida. I know it's 6 hours away from where we are, but John Summerall, I think that the key is that Florida wants to get back to the way things were with Urban Meyer. Is it realistic that Florida can become a top 5 school? Well, with NIL, they do have a pretty big fan base and NIL money, but I just think that with the SEC being so top heavy with teams that are competing with Big Ten teams now that are winning national championships, it's going to be tough. But I was looking at the Florida Gators the last couple of years. 4-8 was definitely not where they saw themselves, but when they went 8-5 in 2024 with that tough schedule, Billy Napier, I said, you know what? Give him another year. I think that Billy Napier deserves another year. It didn't work out. I just think they shouldn't have fired Dan Mullen, because Dan Mullen was actually a pretty good coach. They've had Jim McElwain. They've had Will Muschamp, but Urban Meyer was the standard. And I just think that Florida is now an 8 or 9 win team. I think that John Summerall can get them to 8 and 9 wins. So I like that hire. Ole Miss, Pete Golding, he was the interim coach last year. He takes over as the head coach. They have a lot of momentum getting all the way to the semifinals of the college football playoff. Interested to see him. Interested to see Texas A&M and Mike Elko as they got to the college football playoff last year. And then what we got going on for tomorrow, Arkansas, new head coach from the University of Memphis, Ryan Silverfield. We've got Jeff Lebby from Mississippi State. And we've got Steve Sarkisian from Texas. Texas is one of the favorites. And then, of course, Lane Kiffin from LSU. If I were to pick who's going to win the SEC, it's going to be a toss-up between Texas or Georgia. I think these two schools are the top of the class when it comes to the SEC. Some of the notable non-conference games that I'm really excited to see: Oklahoma taking on Michigan. You got John Mateer going up against Bryce Underwood. How does Michigan fare with their brand new coach, Kyle Whittingham? And then John Mateer going up against Kirk Underwood. And then Ohio State and Texas. That is a massive game. And is this Arch Manning's time to prove that he's the best quarterback in college football? Did not have a very good game against Ohio State last year, but he played well down the stretch. But I think Texas losing to Florida cost them a chance at the college football playoff. No question about it. A lot of stuff to get into. SEC Media Days wrapping up tomorrow, and I'm excited about college football. It's just around the corner. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears, and let's talk about, and don't forget, I'm going to also tease what movie I'm going to preview on Monday. But I want to switch gears. I want to talk about the AFC West. Every Monday and Wednesday until the start of the NFL football season, I preview a division in the NFL. And so on Monday, I previewed the NFC West. This time, I'm going to preview the AFC West. And I'm going to start with the team that is expected to win this division, and that's the Denver Broncos. The Broncos were so close last year to going to the Super Bowl. I believe if Bo Nix was healthy, that they would be in the Super Bowl, and they might even beat Seattle. Their defense was awesome. The only player they lost on defense was Dre Greenlaw, who's now on the 49ers, and he was injury-prone last year. He only played in 8 games. But they have one of the best corners in all of football, Patrick Surtain. They have a solid defensive line. And this was a team that went 14-3 last year. Denver is going to be fine. And then, by the way, they added Jalen Waddle. So Bo Nix has another weapon to throw it to. And then the next team that made the playoffs last year but fell short to the New England Patriots was the Los Angeles Chargers. And Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. I can't believe the Chargers made the playoffs last year with not having an offensive line. Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt both injured, and the fact that they were able to make the playoffs with what they had. They went 11-6 last year, and guess what? They got a brand new offensive line this year. If they stay healthy, Justin Herbert can be one of the top quarterbacks in the AFC. Can the Los Angeles Chargers not only make it to the playoffs, but can they win a playoff game? Because it was very disappointing losing to the New England Patriots, but I knew that the Los Angeles Chargers would end up coming back and making an impact. And then I want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, because there's a lot of question marks with the Kansas City Chiefs. They only won 6 games last year, played a tough schedule. Once Patrick Mahomes went out, I mean, they were already eliminated from playoff contention. Patrick Mahomes had the MCL tear and the ACL tear. Patrick Mahomes' season was done. He is doing everything he can to rehab those injuries so he could be ready for week 1. If he's not ready for week 1, the Kansas City Chiefs have Justin Fields as a backup just in case. Now, their receiving core is obliterated, gone. Hollywood Brown, gone. Rashid Rice, with his legal troubles, I don't think he's going to be playing week 1. Travis Kelce might be in his last year, so that's why you got a backup tight end like Noah Gray, who's probably going to see a lot of playing time, because I just don't think Travis Kelce has enough in the tank to go a full season. You know he's going to be clutch in the postseason. If the Chiefs get to the postseason, you can always rely on Travis Kelce. Their offensive line is solid. I mean, they've got Simmons is a first-round pick. Creed Humphrey's one of the best centers. Trey Smith is one of the best guards. You can never count out the Chiefs. That core group of Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, and Chris Jones, one of the most clutch defensive linemen I have ever witnessed. And I witnessed this with my own eyes because he single-handedly beat the 49ers twice in the Super Bowl. Yeah, you're asking, why one player? The pressures he put on Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo in those Super Bowls is the reason why the Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls against the 49ers. I honestly believe that. So the Chiefs are a team you can never count out. And by the way, they got back Eric Bieniemy, who is a big part of that Chiefs culture as the offensive coordinator. And then I think that Monsieur Delane and Peter Woods are going to make impacts as rookies. So their defense is improved, and they have Kenneth Walker III, the Super Bowl MVP from the Seattle Seahawks. I worry about the receiving core. I seriously thought they could pick and choose any receiver they want. You want Brandon Ayuk? Go get him. You want Tyreek Hill? Go get him. The Chiefs, that's what they do. They bring back old receivers that used to play with the Chiefs. They did that with Kareem Hunt as a running back. They brought back Juju Smith-Schuster. They brought back Nico Hardman. This is what the Chiefs do. So even though I was looking at the depth chart, I'm saying, oh, they've got Xavier Worthy. He's a gadget guy. He's a speedster. They got Tyquan Thornton, and they got Rashid Rice. No, they're going to have more receivers. They're going to find a way to pick up a big-time receiver in the offseason because that's what the Chiefs do. Then finally, the Los Angeles Raiders that had probably one of the most disasters of a hire when it comes to coaches, and I pretty much whiffed on this. Last year, they go 3-14 with Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, and it was an absolute disaster. So this year, they picked Fernando Mendoza overall number 1 with the first pick from Indiana. I don't think he plays this year. They did get Kirk Cousins to be the starter until Fernando Mendoza is ready. They got weapons on offense. Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, the defense, Max Crosby's coming back. I think the Las Vegas Raiders are going to be improved, but they are in a very tough division. All right, I'm moving along here because I'm going to have Aaron Meaux on the show in just a bit. But every Wednesday, I am going to have my Alabama high school football report. And it could be, previewing upcoming games that week. talking about who are the top quarterbacks in the state. But this first episode of my high school football report for the AHSAA, I'm going to rank my top 10 teams in Alabama. And my criteria is, well, it's a little bit different than Georgia. I'm not going to say if you played in the state championship or if you were a runner-up, but also, remember, they have a new reclassification. They have AA private and single A private. Glenwood's now a AA team, and they are in the private bracket with the likes of Miguel Tulin and St. Michael's Catholic and UMCS Wright Prep. They're in a very tough private bracket. You got the smaller private schools like Mars Hill Bible, Coosa Christian. They're in the single A private. And there's no more 7A. They've gone down to 6A, 5A, and so on. So here's my top 10 for Alabama high schools. All right, number 10, or I'm going to start with number 1. I fooled you right there. No, number 1, Thompson. What can I say about the Thompson Warriors, who have been the standard? They have won state championships in just about every single year. They won it last year, and they ended up winning 4 in a row from 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. And then, Central won it in 2023. They end up winning 2 more championships. So 6 out of the last 7 years, the Thompson Warriors have been state champions. Oh, and by the way, remember that 8th grader back when he won a state championship? Trent Seaburn is now a senior. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the state of Alabama, and he is an Alabama commit. And guess what? Thompson plays Central, the rematch at Garrett Harrison Stadium on August the 20th. I still want to be there. I want to find a way where we're there covering it or something. Rematch of the semifinal last year when Central lost 35-34, and Patrick Nix, when he was the coach, decided to go for 2. Sometimes you got to roll the dice in those situations. So I agreed with that call. I just feel bad that was his last ever call, and now Central's got a new coach in Cody Flournoy. So Thompson at number 2. Clay Chalkville. They are now a 5A school. They were a 6A school last year. Clay Chalkville, undefeated last year, one of the top teams in 6A. They beat Saraland. Clay Chalkville is just a powerhouse out of Pinson, Alabama, and their first game of the season, it's a border war. They're taking on one of the top teams in Georgia, Creekside. How about that? Saturday afternoon, August the 22nd, it's Clay Chalkville and Creekside, and then they play Thompson the following Thursday. Are you kidding me? That is a great lineup, and I think Clay Chalkville, a team that went undefeated last year, they beat Saraland in the state championship. I got Clay Chalkville at number 2. Number 3, I got Central. Look, Central made it to the semifinals last year. And I know my criteria is like, what about like state champions and state runners-up? Well, the way they do it in Alabama, Central was the second best team. And they just happened to be paired up with Thompson on that side of the bracket. That was the state championship. It's not a knock on Opelika. They deserve to be there. They knocked off Auburn. They did deserve to be in the state championship. But Central just has like players that are in the NFL now. Cam Coleman's over at Texas. He's going to be in the NFL. Bobby Coleman, a terrific quarterback. Jaden Newhouse, an incredible Jayshon Woodhouse is an incredible running back. And they got guys like Braylon Everett. I think that Bobby Coleman, one of the top quarterbacks in the state of Alabama. If you look at Central's schedule, I mean, their 2 losses were to IMG Academy and Thompson. So what happened? Why were they on the same side of the bracket as Thompson? Well, remember, that was a home game. Thompson didn't even win their region. So Thompson had to go on the road, but I put Thompson number 1. Central is number 3. because Clay Chalkville won a state championship. So Central is placed right where they need to be, even though they were in the semifinals. But they have a chance to prove themselves once again, taking on the Thompson Warriors on August the 20th at Garrett Harrison Stadium. Number 4, I got Saraland. Saraland has always been a dominating powerhouse in 6A with multiple state championships. They did fall short to Clay Chalkville in the 6A championship. Now they're a 5A school. But, Saraland down there in Mobile, this is where Ryan Williams went to college, went to high school. Now he's at Alabama. Ryan Coleman Williams now. But Saraland has had a ton of talented players to come out of that school. Number 5, I have Jackson. Jackson won the 4A state championship last year, and guess who their coach was? The Central coach, Cody Flournoy. Jackson is a powerhouse over there in Jackson, Alabama, and what they were able to do last year, 13-2, had an incredible season. Jackson ends up winning the 4A state championship over Anniston. They actually demolished them 52-0. They actually beat St. Michael's Catholic in the semifinals. That's the team that Phillip Rivers coaches. And they were able to beat Handley. I mean, that's a team that's just outside of the Chattahoochee Valley. I got Jackson at number 5. And then I got Moody at number 6. Moody won the 5A state championship. They were able to beat Vigor. And Moody's at 6. And then at number 7, Mars Hill Bible. Mars Hill Bible out of Florence, Alabama, was a powerhouse in 3A for many, many years. However, they are going to a new classification. They are going to single A private. But last year, what they did to go 15-0, beat Bayside Academy in the state championship, I got Mars Hill Bible at number 7. Number 8, the single A state champions, Maplesville. And then it was hard to pick who am I going to rank 9 or 10, because these schools were 6A schools, 5A schools, 4A schools that are now going to be in AA private with Glenwood. I got Montgomery Catholic at number 9, and I got St. Michael's Catholic at 10. You're probably wondering, where's McGill-Tulane? McGill-Tulane was a 6A school that had a decent winning record, but they lost in the first round of Pike Road in the 6A playoffs. I think they could compete for a 2A private championship. But I think that Montgomery Catholic and St. Michael's Catholic actually went a little bit further in their playoffs. So McGill-Tulane is right there on the cusp. But that's it. That's my top 10 for Alabama. It was fun doing it because, I put some thought into it. Obviously, there was a no-brainer about the top 4. But when you get into the lower classifications, you can say, well, what about this team that's a 7A school that could probably beat that 3A school? That's very true. But I wanted to spread it out and give love to those teams that won a state championship. Why don't we do this? Let's go to a break. And when we come back on the other side of the break, I got WALB Sports Director Aaron Meaux coming on the show. You don't want to go anywhere. It's the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, and we'll be right back after this. And welcome back to the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, and I'm excited about my next guest. He covers sports down in Albany, Georgia. He is a sports director of WALB. Please welcome to the Sports Beat, Aaron Meaux. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you inviting me on. I'm really excited. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about, but really excited just to be here, get an opportunity to talk some football, talk a little bit about my story, and I'm excited, man.
Oh, absolutely. Our paths have crossed many times as you do a fantastic job covering sports down in Southwest Georgia. But before we get into everything that you have done so far in your broadcasting career, just take us way back where you got started with your broadcasting. The floor is yours. Just go ahead and tell your story.
Man, I would say it's a pretty unique journey. This is my second career. I worked in the government for about 12 years in the Department of Motor Vehicles back in California, was doing a government desk job while I was still trying to play football, or acting like I was playing football at least. And all of a sudden, one day, kind of woke up. I was 32 years old and said, this is not really what I wanted to do. I wanted to get back in the sports world. And so I started to look at different schools, different options, different avenues, found the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, which was in Orlando, Florida. I saw that they had an online program. I thought that was a really cool opportunity for me. I was married, I had kids at the time, and decided to, give it a shot. So I went back to school, went through the 29-month kind of rigorous program of broadcasting from home, doing much of the stuff like this online and learning how to shoot and edit. And going through that program really taught me a lot about the industry. And then once I graduated, I started that really, really tough job search, which I'm sure most people that are trying to get into this industry have had, where they have to put in applications at a bunch of local, news networks, and trying to avoid the news job and just stick to the sports job, which there aren't many of. So went through that grind for a few months, and then finally found myself here. It was at WALB. It was kind of a unique situation. I didn't really apply for the job here, which was strange. I had put in a bunch of applications in different places. And it just so happened that I had a mentor of mine during my schooling that had worked at ESPN with the news director here at WALB, and gave me a call, I came highly recommended at the time, and offered me a sports director job. But it was a unique journey, because most people that have gotten into this industry usually start when they're younger. I work with a bunch of, 22, 23, 24-year-olds, and they're fresh out of college, bright-eyed, ready to go. And here I am, a family moving across the country, had worked a previous government job, and now starting this industry as I moved into my late 30s. So a little bit of a different path, but probably the best move I ever made. I feel like I'm at home. It's been, a crazy 4 years. I've got to cover a lot of stuff, meet great people such as yourself, and just interact, where we often find ourselves crossing paths at these same events. And it's always cool, because this industry, it might seem large, but it really, really is just a very, very small group of people. So it's been really good to me.
Yeah, it truly is, Aaron. Just getting to know you, whether we're covering GIAA or you're coming up to Columbus because there's a school from Southwest Georgia that's in a state championship. I think that networking is important, especially in the field that we do. But I want to talk about WALB. It doesn't just cover Albany. You have a huge geographical footprint in Southwest Georgia. Just talk about all the areas that you have covered. As north as Americus, you're covering Cairo, Bainbridge. You're also, are you tapping into the Valdosta market as well? Tift County, that area?
Yes, sir. I like to say we are a small market station with a big market feel. A lot of it's because of the wide range of schools that we actually cover. We are really just south of Macon, all the way down to just north of Tallahassee. And we do even tap in a little bit to Tallahassee. It is a very widespread coverage area, 54 high schools to be exact. And we're into Alabama closely when we're talking Early County and Seminole, and we're getting those schools. We go as far east as Douglas and some, over there near Waycross. We literally do touch all corners of Southwest Georgia. And I think the really unique thing about WALB is there's not a competing market here. So there's no other stations here that cover those areas. We get Columbus. We have some blend with them. We have some blend with WTVY in Alabama, and we have some blend with WCTV over in Tallahassee. But when we talk about the Albany area and the surrounding areas, there is no competition. There's no, we are the only outlet that covers them. And so I take great pride in that. I take a lot of responsibility in making sure that I feel like they're shown the justice that they deserve, being such a really, really great sports towns that we have here. But it really is truly an opportunity to showcase a lot of good young talent, and to do so on such a large scale. It's exhausting, but it's well worth it.
Well, Aaron, we are about a month away from week 1 of high school football all over the state of Georgia. And some of the schools that we cover up in Columbus will be facing some of the schools that you cover down in Albany. With the new reclassification, we have Columbus, Spencer, Hardaway, and Shaw going to be in the same region with Cairo, Bainbridge, Westover, Monroe, and Doherty. And then Carver, Kendrick, Jordan are going to be in the same region with Worth County, Crisp County, and Sumter County. So you know that our paths are going to cross a lot during this high school football season. Talk about what you think of this reclassification and how it benefits these Albany schools.
Well, number one, I'm excited because you get a little, I don't want to say fresh blood, but you get to see some different teams you haven't played, you're not as familiar with. Some of these regions are now that they've shifted, it's been the same 6 teams in the region the past couple of years for Doherty and Westover and those guys. So for them to get to see some new opportunities, I think is really cool, but also just the good football that Columbus has to offer. It allows that to come down to South Georgia and vice versa to just see some different competition. The one I'm really excited about is the Sumter, Worth, Carver. I think that is going to be an absolute gauntlet. You're talking about state championship teams going head-to-head, contenders for state championships. I can't tell you, I'm not big on predictions, and the only thing I can predict is it's going to be a very physical region, and that's going to be some real good football. So if you have an opportunity to go check those teams out and get to watch those guys play, I just think it's some of the best football you're going to find in the country, especially at the scale, the lower level schools that don't have 2,000-3,000 kids. Those guys can play some football, and it's always fun and exciting. This opportunity is going to allow the north or middle Georgia, I guess you can say, to kind of blend with South Georgia. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited we get to share content with some of our sister stations. Oftentimes we don't get to go to every game, especially when they're up in Columbus. Now our sister station's right there. They might be at some of those games and vice versa down here. We can share content. We'll be able to have those highlights for our viewers. And to me, that's really, really important. It's something that we haven't had really the last 2 years on a wide scale like we're going to have this year. So it's really fun.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, during the state championship last year at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I was actually on the sideline, and we were covering Carver. And Worth County won the state championship. And the first thing that came to my mind, wow, these two schools are going to be in the same region next year, and I cannot wait. I do want to talk about some of the champions that you've covered, like Worth County, but you've also covered Thomas County Central is an absolute juggernaut. They hammered Gainesville in the state championship. We've seen state champions in the past where you cover, like Fitzgerald. Obviously, Valdosta has a bunch of state championships. Lee County is a powerhouse. Just talk about some of these football teams that are absolute powerhouses, and where does this come from? Because this is absolutely incredible that we have all this talent down in Southwest Georgia.
Yeah, I would just attribute it to its life down here. Like we can talk about the schools up north and everything's within close proximity and a lot of transfers are coming in there. But down here in South Georgia, everything is so spread out. There isn't a lot to do. You're trying to go places to find things to do. These kids know football. It's what they breathe. It's what they grow up watching. It's what they grow up loving. And it means a little bit more. And that's not to knock anybody else or anywhere else. Obviously, there's good football in a lot of places. But the passion that the fans have, the commitment that the communities have to these programs, it's something I've never experienced. I'm from Northern California, and we had some okay football up there. And I've been in LA or Los Angeles where there's some really good football, but it just means more out here. It truly is a way of life. And that's always really exciting to have stuff like that. You mentioned some of those teams. The Thomas County Centrals, they put, not only an all-state record in Deuce Lawrence last year, but you get Jalen Johnson, who's won his second state title in his time there. And they just, they're leaving. Maybe you think it's a rebuild. No, they're just going to retool. They got a young quarterback in the Waldrop kid that has a lot of potential. They also got in a transfer, Aiden McPherson from Rome, who is expected to be really, really has a lot of potential, expected to be really good for that team. Lee County, Worth County, the championship medal that's down here, it really is second to none. And you just have to talk about the passion that they play with. And I think some of these schools, the rich tradition is just bigger than the program itself. And I think you're going to see that again this year with teams like TCC, like Lee County, and even throw in Clinch County in here this year, who's also going to have something to say about a state championship that they're trying to take away from Bowden that's had for the last 4 years.
Oh, yeah. Bowden has won 4 state championships. Somebody is going to have to dethrone him. Why not Clinch County? I'm actually looking at the high school football schedule. Aaron, I can't believe some of these games you get to cover. Thomas County Central and Colquitt County. Are you kidding me?
Week one.
Week 1. That's got to be your game of the week, right?
It is. It is. We've already labeled that game of the week. Not only is it game of the week, but there's so many good storylines here. It would be almost better if I believe it's at TCC. Would love it if it was in Moultrie. But we're talking about Coach Justin Rogers, who came from Colquitt County, kind of got ran out of town there, over to TCC. You got Coach Sean Calhoun, is a really great football mind. It's such a rich tradition between those two. It's going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait. I mean, there literally is stars on both sides of the ball from both of those teams. And if you want to go watch a real good high school football game, no better place to be than in Thomasville on August 21st for that one.
Yeah, no question about it. And I know our paths are going to cross, especially in 4A, where we have Shaw, Columbus, Spencer, and Hardaway. Spencer and Columbus both made the playoffs last year, but they were in 2A. We got kind of spoiled. The past 2 years, 7 of the 8 schools in Muskogee County were all in the same region. Now we've got 4 teams that's moved up to 4A. Carver, Kendrick, and Jordan are now in 3A. Jordan is actually playing a non-region football schedule. But it's really 2A because they did away with Class 1A Division 1 and Division 2. And 7A is back. And you talk about that team you have over at 7A, Colquitt County. But what do you think of the way that they have done the classifications and the fact that they have done away with the power rankings? You could have a team in a region that could make the playoffs and everybody else could be sitting home.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think one, I'll be honest, there are a lot of our regions. Region 1 was a very tough region in a lot of classifications here in South Georgia. And I think sometimes some of the South Georgia teams missed out on playoff opportunities because of that landscape. And I think the new landscape allows for some of those teams to get in. We've had situations where it's Valdosta, Lowndes, and Colquitt. All 3 schools belong in the top probably 10 to 15 in Class 7A. But because of the old format, one of those teams had to go on the road in their first playoff game. Now that's kind of been eliminated. Those teams, because of the strength of schedule, because of the region that they play in, those teams are going to have opportunities to not only make the postseason, but also get home playoff games. And I think that's kind of an important factor. And then you look at some of these regions that might be a little bit deeper, where maybe there does need to be 5 teams that make the postseason because of the schedule that's played. And this new region format and this new playoff format will allow some of those teams to have those opportunities. I'm all for it. I know it's tough when you start trying to rank schedules and all these little factors. And I know there's like a million factors that go into the ranking system. And sometimes people don't agree with it. But I do think overall, I think it's a better landscape than saying, hey, 4 teams make the playoffs in each region. And you might have a team that's ranked 4th that has 2 wins that really doesn't belong in the playoffs. I think that has to play a factor. And so I'm all for the change. I think it's a good thing. I think it's shifting more towards probably the college football landscape. And I think the more we do that, the better it gets. But look, it's at the end of the day, you want the playoff games to mean more. You want to have more teams in that deserve to be in the postseason, and the teams that with the records and the standings, you want them to have home playoff games because they deserve it. And so I think this lends to that. Is it perfect? No, but I'm all for it.
Aaron, you do a fantastic job promoting your highlights on your social media page. What's typically a Friday night like at WALB? How much members of your team are actually going out and shooting highlights of games? And also that time crunch of getting maybe a highlight that's maybe local in town to rush back to the station to get ready for your highlight show. Is that typically what goes on Friday night?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I would say this is probably the same for most local news stations, but my Friday night starts on Monday morning. As crazy as it sounds, my production of that show starts Monday morning when I walk in, And
Okay.
and I'd start to build that show, getting storylines together, getting my stuff slugged down in my rundown, because I know come Friday's a whirlwind, man. We get up, we do a hometown tailgate at our game of the week in the afternoon. We have like live shots between the hometown tailgate and the game itself. We go visit a local restaurant, promote their business. We do a pregame show there. It's all really cool. And then everybody's kind of sent out to shoot. I have me and then two other members of the sports team here who are kind of the main focal points. And then I have usually 3 shooters from the newsroom that'll help us out. And then I have a couple of miscellaneous shooters that I recruit from either different places in the newsroom or outside. And then I get footage from WCTV, TVM, TVY that kind of put the final touches on the show. And so on a night, we end up with 15, 16 different games we're at, highlight-wise. If I have some of us going to 2 different games, our game of the week is solely focused on game of the week. And when we get back to the station, we have 45 minutes to put all these highlights together, put them in the show, write the scripts, get them all down, and then get out on set and be ready to go and change our clothes because, we got to dress up. So it is an absolute frantic night, but there's no better night in my job. It is so rewarding to highlight student athletes at this level. And then right after the show, we don't even waste any time. We go right live on Facebook, live on our digital platform, and we do overtime. We interact with the fans. Fans are in the chat. We ask them who their top standouts were. They can ask us questions. They can do all kind of different things. And we're on there as long as we need to be. As long as there's interaction, we stay on. That could last until 12. That could last until 12:30. That could be until 1 a.m. if people are still watching and people want to interact with us. And I think that's a really cool opportunity. So we are all high school football. That is like what we are breathing during the fall. And it's not just a Friday night. It literally is 18 hours a day for me, basically between August and January. And I take pride in that. I love it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. But my goal, I tell people, is anybody can turn on highlights on ESPN and watch them talk about LeBron James and, Patrick Mahomes and all that. My goal for this station is to have the high school athletes feel like they're LeBron James and Patrick Mahomes. And so I want to give them as much spotlight as possible. It's about them, not about me. And I will continue to do that as long as I'm here.
Aaron, talk about the sports scene in Albany. Obviously, there's Albany State there. You have some semi-pro teams. I know that in the past, they had the Flint River City River Gators. They've had indoor football teams and an indoor soccer team, the Albany Aces. I know that they've had a minor league baseball team. Just the community of Albany and surrounding areas like Leesburg, could they support semi-professional teams? And how has the success been in semi-professional teams in the past?
It's one of those things where I think the landscape in sports has definitely changed. It is a lot harder to predict whether a community can support a team because of the availability that we have right in our hands, and that's a phone. I mean, you see it at the high school games. If you were to take high school football in South Georgia 20, 30 years ago, the stands, you wouldn't be able to find a seat in any park, in any facility. But now with streaming, NFHS, and all these opportunities to watch from home, many do take that opportunity. And I think we as a sports landscape have to find a way to also transition with that and find ways to still make people want to go to the games. And I do think there's been a struggle in Albany in trying to figure that out. And that's why you don't really hear the talks of, can we bring a minor league program back to the city? Because there's so much infrastructure that's needed by the city, the community itself, that it's trouble here to try to get buildings to stay. I mean, like actual establishments. Yeah. And you want to be able to support teams. You need a flourishing community, downtown, food spots, like places people want to be. And, I've grown very fond of the community of Albany, and I think there's some great people here. The leadership has to do a better job, to me, of finding ways to integrate the community with the businesses. And I think and I do think there are people out there that are trying to do that. You see some of these small business training facilities that are going up, which is really, really good for our communities. And I think once you start to see that grow, because it's never really recovered from the pandemic, I think you'll start to see those conversations ramp back up. in reality, I do think this is the place where you could support that. It's a great location in the sense of you're not too far from anything. It reminds me a lot of where I grew up in Sacramento. We were an hour from the bay, 2 hours from the mountains. We were right in the valley. Well, Albany is very centralized. You have Florida's an hour and a half away. A few hours, you're on the coast, you're in Jacksonville. You can go over down to Alabama. Many people travel to like Destin and those places. You can go up north 2.5 hours to Atlanta. So there's great surrounding places. And this is a great spot to kind of raise a family. It's a little bit quieter. The traffic's not bad. And so you can build from that. It's just, you just have to have people with that vision of saying, I want to make Albany flourish. And like I said, I think it's been a struggle since the pandemic. And I think we're starting to trend in the right direction, but ultimately it comes down to somebody wanting to take on that responsibility and make it happen.
Well, Aaron, this has definitely been a pleasure. I appreciate you coming on the Sports Beat and telling your story and talking a little high school football. I can't believe that it is a month away, and I'm looking forward to seeing you out on the field.
I appreciate it, buddy. We'll definitely see each other, and I can't wait. A lot of good football on the way.
All right, that is WALB Sports Director Aaron Meaux. Thank you so much for watching another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, and we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you for watching the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. You can catch new episodes on Facebook and YouTube every Monday and Wednesday night at 5 p.m. The Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge is a local podcast that covers sports in Columbus, Georgia.